Good afternoon, Eli, Yaakov, distinguished guests. As my colleagues have said, our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the young women and men who tragically lost their lives in last week's floods. Israel mourns, and I know the entire Jewish world mourned with us. It seems it's always a pivotal time in the Middle East. You never hear an Israeli approach the microphone and say everything is pretty quiet or nothing to worry about on our borders. But even by those standards, this is an incredible moment. In the period of just a month surrounding this conference, you will have seen increasing tensions with Iran, an American, British, and French attack in Syria, Israel celebrating 70 years of independence, the deadline President Trump has set on the Iran nuclear deal, and the move of the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. Even in the Middle East, that chain of events is enough to make your head spin. Over the last couple of weeks, Iran has increased its rhetoric against us, threatening to wipe Israel off the map. Iran has proven time and again that they are a sophisticated and patient adversary. That, however, does not mean they are less fanatic or genocidal. They slowly ramped up their nuclear program and built Hezbollah over the course of decades. They seek to entrench themselves through proxies, replicating the blueprint they have used in Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq. In Syria, they are using the Shia militias. Let me make a few things perfectly clear. We will prevent an Iranian entrenchment in Syria by any means necessary and at any cost. Israel will not tolerate Iranian air bases or naval ports in Syria, nor will we accept Shiite militias on our borders. I have some very simple advice for the Iranian regime. Do not test our Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you. Do not test the IDF, and do not test the people of Israel. Thank you. The Jewish people returned home from 2,000 years of exile, and we are never leaving again. Amen. Israel has survived for 70 years. We survived when we were literally a startup nation in 1948. We survived when we were ready in 1967 and when we were not ready in 1973. We withstood airline hijackings, Arab League boycotts, suicide bombers, rocket attacks, terror tunnels, assaults against Jews and Israelis worldwide, and we destroyed 2 nuclear facilities created to threaten our very existence. And not only have we endured, we have thrived beyond the wildest dream of even our most visionary founding mothers and fathers. Israel has made the desert bloom and gathered the exiles while establishing a robust economy and an even more robust democracy. We have done so because the Israeli people refuse to ever again be stateless and at the mercy of others. Last December, President Donald Trump announced that the United States recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital and would move the American embassy there. While this was an extraordinary announcement, and Israel is extremely grateful, the reaction of the Palestinians was completely out of sync with history and reality. For 3,000 years, the Jewish people has only considered one city on earth to be our capital during that 3,000 years. The Babylonians, Persians, Romans, Umayyads, Ayyubids, Mamluks, and Ottomans all ruled Jerusalem for a period of time. None of them made it their capital. Jerusalem has been the only capital the Jewish people has ever known or desired. President Trump's announcement did not prejudge or prejudice future negotiations and didn't draw any borders. It recognized the historic reality of the Jewish people's connection to Jerusalem and the present-day reality that Jerusalem is, in fact, the capital of the State of Israel. I was born in Jerusalem, and so were all my children. My mother was born in Jerusalem, and so was her mother. My grandfather came to the land of Israel from Yemen 110 years ago after hearing his parents and grandparents pray 3 times a day for the redemption of Jerusalem. Like me, millions of Jews in Israel and around the world feel privileged to live in a time when Jerusalem is free and united. And we are excited to celebrate in just 2 weeks as the greatest superpower in the world makes history by moving its embassy to Jerusalem. I'll be there. Each and every one of you will be there with his heart. Thank you. We greatly appreciate this courageous move, and Israel calls upon the rest of the world to follow America's lead and recognize Israel's right to choose our capital city. The terrorist organizations in Gaza, as well as senior Palestinian Authority officials, threatened to respond to the embassy ceremony by initiating unrestrained violence. I reiterate the firm warning of the Israeli government. We will not allow acts of aggression under the guise of legitimate protest. There is nothing legitimate in attempting to breach the security fence into sovereign Israeli territory. There is no justification for putting children in harm's way to create a show for the media. Terrorists using teenagers, the elderly, and disabled as human shields is not an act of legitimate protest. It is a war crime. The cynical use of the bodies of IDF soldiers, Golden and Shaul, and withholding information about the fate of 2 innocent civilians who entered the Gaza Strip without malicious intent are also war crimes, as are the firing of rockets into population centers and digging tunnels into Israeli territory. This month, dozens of people have paid for Hamas fanaticism with their lives. We really hope there will not be more futile bloodshed next month, in the month of May. And we have another hope for May, an announcement by the American administration that it will not renew sanction relief under the nuclear agreement with Iran. This will send a clear message. The United States no longer accepts the fundamental flaws in the agreement, such as the sunset clauses and the failure to address Iran's ballistic missiles program. Israel is no longer a lone voice that warns in vain of the significant dangers of the nuclear agreement. The President of the United States, who recognized the danger years ago, is leading a new clear-eyed policy. Israel backs the United States' efforts to address the flaws in the agreement. Israel will support any measure to prevent the fanatical regime in Tehran from ever possessing weapons of mass destruction and to avoid a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to leave you with one closing thought. Israel is an incredible place filled with extraordinary people. Our achievements have bordered on the miraculous. Having said that, I believe we have only scratched the surface of our potential. I am confident, and you should be confident, that the best is yet to come. Thank you.